Pablo Alonso González is a Spanish heritage scholar affiliated with the Spanish National Research Council, CSIC, known for his critical and interdisciplinary work on the social, political and economic dimensions of heritage. Educated in archaeology and heritage studies, he has been associated with research institutes such as Incipit GZIC in Santiago de Compostela and IPNA GZIC in Tenerife. His scholarship examines how heritage operates as a system of power within modern capitalist societies, questioning the ideological foundations of patrimonialization and its effects on communities and identity. Through works such as The Heritage Machine, Fetishism and Domination in Maragateria, Spain, 2018, and El Antipatrimonio, Fetichismo y Dominación en Maragateria, 2017, he critiques the commodification of cultural memory and explores how heritage practices reproduce social hierarchies and alienation. His research situates heritage as a field where modernity, capitalism, and collective life intersect, offering a sustained critique of how Western societies define, consume, and institutionalize the past. Eva Paya Dans is a Spanish sociologist and researcher whose work integrates economic sociology, heritage studies, and territorial development. She holds a degree in sociology from the University of A Coruña and a PhD in applied economics from the University of Santiago de Compostela. She is affiliated with the Group of Territorial Studies, GET, at the University of A Coruña, and has published with the Institute of Natural Products and Agrobiology of the Spanish National Research Council, IPNA GZIC. Her research examines how local economies, cultural heritage, and social value intersect in rural and regional contexts, focusing on sustainability, tourism, and agro-food systems such as wine production. Paya Dans has co-authored studies on intentional communities, including the Rainbow Movement, exploring how alternative forms of living engage with ideas of space, belonging, and environmental awareness. Across her work, she approaches territorial identity and heritage not as static categories, but as social constructions shaped by cultural practices, governance, and changing economic realities, grounding her analyses in empirical fieldwork and interdisciplinary collaboration within contemporary European contexts. This paper examines Spain's Rainbow Movement through the village of Matavenero, showing how an idealistic 1980s hippie commune gradually morphed into a more pragmatic eco-village, shifting from shared living and consensus politics to greater individualism, privatization, and small-scale enterprise. Using long-term ethnography, the authors argue that the usual idea of heritage barely appears here. Instead, they propose an a-patrimonial dynamic. People value places and things functionally, like common buildings, rather than as official heritage, and community memory is carried by stories of the original pioneers more than by preserved monuments. As infrastructure improved and private property spread, communal structures, council, shared work, bands, common facilities, weakened, and everyday life came to resemble mainstream society despite green ideals. The authors conclude that when a nomadic, countercultural movement settles down, it often reproduces modern social patterns, and that the absence, or reworking, of heritage practices plays a key role in whether such intentional communities can endure. The introduction presents the Rainbow Movement as a global offshoot of the 1960s hippie counterculture, rooted in ideals of peace, freedom, ecological harmony, and spiritual unity that spread from the United States to Europe. It explains that the movement embraces New Age spirituality, environmental consciousness, and communal living as ways to challenge modern capitalist society and reconnect with nature and collective values. The authors set out to study how these ideals materialize in Matavenero, one of Spain's earliest rainbow communities, focusing on whether notions of heritage, understood as the preservation of shared cultural memory and material space, emerge in such countercultural contexts. The section establishes the paper's main question: how the community's use of space, memory, and material culture reflects its identity and evolving relationship with the past. Background and methodology situates the study within academic discussions about heritage, community, and counterculture, emphasizing how rainbow groups challenge conventional ideas of heritage and belonging. Drawing on critical heritage studies, The authors argue that heritage is not a neutral act of preservation, but a political process that reflects power, identity, and social values, issues the rainbow movement actively resists through its anti-materialist and egalitarian worldview. To explore how these ideals play out in practice, they employ an ethnographic approach, living in Matavenero between 2009 and 2011 to observe daily life, conduct interviews, and record visual material. This immersive fieldwork allows them to understand how rainbows create meaning and community through shared space and practices, rather than through formal heritage frameworks, revealing how their alternative lifestyle both contests and reproduces aspects of modern society. The authors situate rainbow within the broader hippie/countercultural wave that drew heavy academic attention in Anglophone countries, but remained marginal in Spain, where the first rainbow gatherings arrived late and with modest public impact. They stress that rainbow projects in Spain are often mislabeled as simple returns to the rural, when in fact they stem from different social dynamics, most notably the arrival of non-Spanish rainbows, as in Matavenero's case. A core claim is that rainbow participants are not pre-modern rebels, but deeply modern, indeed supermodern subjects, highly individualized people who rationally plan life projects even as they long for pre-modern forms of togetherness. Reacting to the space-time compression of late capitalism, they try to reconstruct dense, place-based social bonds, what the authors call community as a set of relationships that hold people together in a place. This produces a central contradiction, attempting to escape modern individualism using thoroughly modern tools and mindsets. The section argues that when such nomadic anti-modern projects settle, they tend to be recaptured by capitalist and modern logics. In Matavenero, this played out amid the irony that nearby peasant communities already embodied many of the communal traits rainbows were seeking, just without the wealth/education advantages many newcomers had. Over time, rainbow ideology in Matavenero became a ghost, and the village moved toward the ecovillage model. Rainbow gatherings, for example, the 2009 European Rainbow in Matavenero, function as rites of passage and identity formation for newcomers. In these intense, short, territorialized encounters, people acquire a shared aesthetic, values, and Orientalist cosmologies, which then anchor a sense of belonging to the rainbow family. The movement presents itself as universal, a seed that can grow anywhere, aligning with a Western modern trajectory that frames the self as a project in constant transformation. Yet this universalism often overlooks geopolitically privileged mobility, the ability to choose Goa or Matavenero, and becomes problematic when a nomadic ethos tries to become sedentary. Finally, the section charts the broader ideological shift from 1980s-1990s countercultural communalism to 2010s environmental pragmatism. Many former rainbows now identify as greens or members of eco-villages, a move the authors link both to changing individualist/postmodern values and to the strategic legitimacy environmentalism provides with institutions and the public. Eldar, a second-generation voice, captures this arc, from teepees and mutual dependence to comforts, rising expectations, and a mindset increasingly similar to modern times. The section on Matavenero begins by situating the village within the broader trend of rural repopulation in northwestern Spain during the 1980s. Following decades of depopulation and abandonment, a group of rainbow members, mostly from northern Europe, arrived in 1989 after encountering articles about deserted Spanish villages. Drawn by the symbolism of rebuilding ruins and returning to nature, they saw Matavenero as a blank canvas for creating a utopian community. However, their project quickly faced bureaucratic and social challenges. Spanish authorities required formal permissions to occupy the land and insisted that Spaniards be part of the settlement, generating early divisions between local and foreign members. Many rainbows lived on state subsidies from their home countries, introducing class and cultural tensions that would shape the community's development. Despite these obstacles, the founding of Matavenero became a symbolic milestone for Spain's countercultural scene, marking a tangible manifestation of rainbow ideals in Europe's rural periphery. During its early communal phase, Matavenero embodied the spirit of collective living and anti-capitalist experimentation that defined the rainbow ethos. The settlers rebuilt the village through shared labor, creating roads, communal spaces, renewable energy systems, and gardens. Governance was based on consensus and mutual aid, inspired by Native American council traditions often cited in rainbow gatherings. Social relations were fluid, emphasizing free love, non-hierarchical decision-making, and communal ownership of resources. These practices fostered a strong sense of unity and spiritual energy, with members describing the period as a magical time when idealism and cooperation were at their peak. Daily life revolved around shared meals, ritual gatherings, and collective work, creating a powerful sense of belonging that reinforced the community's utopian identity. In these years, Matavenero seemed to fulfill the rainbow dream of living in harmony with nature, outside the structures of modern society. Over time, however, individualization and material comfort began to erode this communal ideal. As homes were completed and basic infrastructure stabilized, members gradually shifted from shared spaces to private property and nuclear family living, mirroring the very social segmentation the movement sought to escape. The decline of collective tasks, the disappearance of free love, and the fading of weekly council meetings reflected a growing focus on personal autonomy rather than collective identity. The arrival of solar power, internet access, and mobile phones, once unimaginable in the village, further reinforced this supermodern individualism. The rainbow ideology, once a living practice, became more of a nostalgic reference to a lost communal past. Matavenero thus transitioned from a radical experiment in intentional living into a hybrid settlement, part eco-village, part rural neighborhood, embodying both the aspirations and contradictions of the rainbow movement's attempt to institutionalize freedom and community in a settled, modern world. The authors explain how Matavenero's rainbow commune evolved into an eco-village, reflecting a broader transformation in the rainbow movement from countercultural idealism to ecological pragmatism. As the community aged, its original utopian goals of spiritual unity, free love, and anti-capitalist living gave way to a more practical focus on sustainability, self-sufficiency, and environmental credibility. Former rainbows began identifying as greens or eco-villages rather than hippies, aligning themselves with the global eco-village network, and adopting language that resonated with institutions, policymakers, and society at large. This shift provided a sense of legitimacy and stability, but also signaled a departure from the movement's original radical ethos, as ecological discourse gradually replaced the communal spirituality and anti-modern rebellion that had once defined rainbow life. In essence, the transformation from commune to eco-village marked the rainbow's integration into mainstream environmentalism, trading its revolutionary character for social acceptance and sustainability branding. In the discussion, the authors highlight the central paradox of the rainbow movement. Its effort to escape modernity and individualism ultimately reproduces those same traits. Although rainbows reject capitalist society and seek communal, egalitarian ways of life, their methods, rational planning, self-improvement, and the pursuit of personal freedom, are deeply rooted in modern Western subjectivity. Once the nomadic rainbow lifestyle becomes sedentary, as in Matavenero, the community begins to mirror the social segmentation, private ownership, and hierarchical relations it sought to overcome. The authors link this to broader theories of nostalgia and imagined communities, arguing that when lived communal bonds weaken, rainbows sustain a sense of identity through collective myths, especially the idealized memory of the pioneer generation. Thus, rainbow settlements embody the tension between utopian longing and the persistent influence of the modern mindset they aim to transcend. In the conclusion, the authors reflect on how the rainbow community of Matavenero evolved from an intentional commune grounded in collective ideals into an eco-village defined by sustainability rhetoric, and finally into an individualized settlement shaped by personal projects and private life. They argue that this transformation stems largely from the absence of a shared sense of heritage, or what they term a-patrimonialism, a way of relating to the past that values experience and function over preservation or collective memory. Without a unifying heritage discourse, the community's cohesion gradually weakens, leaving only symbolic narratives and myths, such as those surrounding the founding pioneers, to sustain a sense of belonging. These stories act as a kind of substitute heritage, maintaining group identity through memory rather than through physical or institutional continuity. Ultimately, the authors conclude that even countercultural experiments like the Rainbow Movement cannot fully escape the logic of modernity, as their quest for freedom and authenticity inevitably reproduces the same individualism and abstraction that define the modern world. The paper explains that the 1987 Rainbow Gathering in Genicera, Leon, Spain, was the decisive moment that led to the creation of Matavenero, Spain's first lasting rainbow commune. During this gathering, participants, mainly Northern Europeans, came across a local newspaper article describing rural depopulation and listing abandoned villages in the region. Inspired by the idea of rebuilding a deserted place, they saw an opportunity to put rainbow ideals of community, ecology, and spirituality into practice by reoccupying the ruined village of Matavenero. This decision marked a key shift in the Rainbow Movement's Spanish history, transforming it from a nomadic network of temporary gatherings into a permanent, place-based experiment in communal living that would later evolve into an eco-village. The paper notes that the 1988 Rainbow Gathering in Fasgar, Leon, Spain, was part of the same chain of events that gave birth to the Matavenero commune, following the initial inspiration from the 1987 Genicera gathering. While less detailed than the earlier event, Fasgar is described as the continuation and consolidation of the Rainbow Initiative in Spain, a moment when the idea of reoccupying an abandoned village turned into a concrete plan. It represents the point at which Rainbow participants, mostly from Northern Europe, moved from discussing utopian ideals during temporary gatherings to actually committing to a permanent settlement, marking the symbolic transition from the Rainbow's nomadic, festival-based culture to a rooted experiment in communal living that would soon materialize in Matavenero.